What's going on, guys? Clone Force 23 here. Got your boy Alec bringing you guys one of our deck techs for the meta and how it's shaping up to be. I got my boy Alex here. Say hello to the people.
Hello, everybody.
And Alex shaping up to be our resident blue villain control maestro. I don't know if that's a flex or if that's like something you don't want to be, but
the current the current shape
the
would
current
call
one.
me a masochist, but
Yeah. And he is commanding the armada here with Piett Blue. So we're gonna go over this deck. If you guys like the video, please hit the like button. Subscribe to us if you can. We're pushing that 200 subscriber mark. We're 30-ish off, so that'd be great to hit. And if you have any questions or comments, throw them down there. Otherwise, let's run into this guy. So we got Admiral P at 30 base. No Colossus.
no Colossus, not for me.
Yeah, I
I
think I agree with that.
yeah, I was actually running less turn one plays than I have here. Actually, yeah, I think like maybe one or two less turn one plays, and that was like ridiculous in itself. But to run Colossus and maybe not draw it for sure was what could have been pretty problematic. I could see a world where we maybe jam some more in there, but I think we're looking for very specific cards early on. So we gotta have the best chances we can. Um, but yeah, big ships. That's Star Destroyer Gaming. That's what we're doing here. Yeah, I mean I'm really focusing on that turn two ramp when we can. I was experimenting for a bit with the bounty, the ramp bounty for turn one, and then turn two into the power of the dark side or some other means to defeat that unit, but it just wasn't happening, and it was literally just I would either draw the bounty and power of the dark side, and I could try it, but it's a very telegraphed play, and most good players will just put down another unit. So I switched up bounties to top target, which has actually had some surprising success. Surprising because people are playing surprise strike a whole not surprise or sneak attack.
Yeah,
Sorry, sneak attack. Sneak attack the ruthless raider or some other insane ship. Put a top target on that for one, and we get 4 to 6 damage back, which feels nice.
nice.
That can
Yeah, super good counterplay.
at least be able to hold ourselves off because that's what we're trying to do is turn one we're ramping, turn one we're putting something down, turn two we're trying to ramp, turn three we're hopefully at 5, and we start getting access to a lot more options. So we've got the relief runner, our space triangles, the fleet interdictor. um those are great answers. We got one of the Gladiator Star Destroyer. I've had mixed results with this. With the interdictor, we already have Sentinel on board. Um, as much as it feels like there should be a super heavy space presence right now in the meta, it doesn't feel that way. It's weird. It's like there is and there isn't.
Yeah,
I feel like more ships are going tall in space. Like you've got your Falcons and your Falcons with your pilots. You've got your turn one ship plus a Chewie, so it's a lot taller. So you kind of like, outside of Django, you might see, one or two earlier on based on what their line is, but even then, that can be pretty manageable later on, especially when you start going into the fleet interdictor and the relief runner. Our our ideal line here is that we turn one Piett, turn two resupply or super laser tech that we get off, and then our turn three is that we're bringing in one of these ships and with ambush, which can feel great. Especially the relief runner. If we took a big hit turn two, can kind of help us come back on that. Um, we've got 2 of the MC-30 frigates. Um, if we miss our ramp, because that can feel really good into a 7-hit OB the next turn. We're playing 2 super or turbo laser salvos. I was off on this card for a minute, but I brought it back in, namely because I was seeing a lot of ground assaults in response to being big ship boy.
Yeah.
So, and we saw, a lot of Hans that are still out there, a lot of Sabines that are still out there. So, being able to hold off to 7 with that big ship that they're probably ignoring, you know, like Fleet Interdictor, for example. Now we're blasting the ground arena for 6, which not a lot of the decks that we're worried about have anything bigger than 6, other than like, I don't know, Enfi's Nest, I guess, for example. And if we've dropped that all down to everything else, then that can be managed the next turn with all of the other capital ships I'm just about to explain. So,
Yeah.
So there's 2 Avengers in here right now. I know a lot of lists that are on 3, but I found myself stuck with an Avenger on a wide board, which feels awful. So I wanted to find some other options. So we've got, that's why we focused on some other things earlier on in the game, to kind of help manage that. Avenger, of course, is still a fantastic ship. I would not pull it out at all, but I brought in 2 Malevolence, which has had some interesting success. There is a line there where you could turn 1 Inferno 4, turn 2 Super Laser Tech, turn 3 you're on 4 resources, you use Piett to discount it by 1, you exploit both of those units, you bring out the Malevolence, you ramp, you scry, and you prevent somebody from attacking. Are they going to let you do that? I have no idea, but it is in there.
It is possible.
It is possible, and even just discounting it once, to exploiting once that it's now coming out on 7. If you flipped out Piett, then that's 5. A 7/7 turn 5 with restore 2 and preventing an attack from somebody. Also very good.
Yeah.
But this deck was built for Devastator. 3 Devastators is a must for this deck. You are getting to 8 in this deck, more likely than not. And this is bring this out sooner rather than later, because now you're threatening 10 on the board and you've just nuked something. So that's what you play it for. I was at 2 and then bumped up to 3 Mauls because I have just really loved how Maul has kind of shown up right now. A lot of 7 HP leaders, Quidlin and Django specifically, but just being able to respond, because if you've ramped properly, you're typically responding with Maul the turn after they flip their leader, which feels really good. You also, if you for some reason are you kind of can get into this point where you've controlled as much as you can, but then now you're kind of racing with their ground assault with your ships, and they kind of don't mind the ground as much, and then you kind of sneak this in for an extra 4 to 5 damage to close it out that they didn't expect. I think the only other spice that I would really note in this is Legal Authority. Now, I saw this get played a lot the last round of PQs with Bosk Green, and that was kind of the same concept, is that they they ramped quickly, they had bigger units, and then they used the legal authority to kind of help control that. Legal authority feels good, especially when you have such a heavy space presence and they have a heavy ground presence. You can kind of pull that one card from the ground, which is again like this is one of the only. I think this and Relentless Pursuit are the two capture cards that capture across arenas, which is super big.
Really good. Yeah.
So that's where I've got one in there right now. One is in the sideboard to like I would probably think about that for like Han or Sabine to kind of pull those things in there. If they, were slapping one of their big units down, can just pull that aside because we're probably bigger than them in space, but can't figure. Sometimes that's kind of what your out is. It does also give 2 HP, which can help out a lot with those ping decks. So yeah, let's talk about the rest of the sideboard. I've got the third No Glory only results, and I would consider even just making this in the main board because it's a 5-cost removal, which can be just great in some situations. You might not be stealing their when defeated effect, but you are also just removing something off of the board. And that might be what you need in that situation. Of course, this is fantastic for your K2s, for your Ruthless Raiders, for their super laser techs, which is always fun. So there's options there. And the rest we're citing for control and late game strategies. So the obvious ones are the 2 Palps Returns, the 2 Relentless, and one more of the Annihilator. Now, I guess I have played the Annihilator a little more than you would expect, and it always feels good. If you're playing an Annihilator, you're getting a massive advantage.
Yeah, it seems like it. I don't know how it wouldn't be.
Yeah. It's just gonna get it even more, especially for those decks that you're anticipating that the usual mirror match sequencing went I play Avenger and then I play Devastator. But now you get to say, no, I play the Annihilator. So it's like, so now it's
no Devastator.
So now it's which I mean, like for Piett, that's great because it's like if you can get over their Devastator by hitting that, and then you hit all 3, great. That makes them have to have the Palps Return or the 0 drop. I think salvage is the term, which is basically the same thing but just for ships.
Same thing. Yeah. Sure.
So it could be interchangeable. I like the Palps Return obviously because we're playing Maul, so we get that extra discount too. So I'm paying the same either way, but I also get to reach Maul with that card.
Yeah.
Probably the spiciest take is that I don't have any resupply carriers in the main. And that's specifically because I don't think it's as good in the main. I think it's one of those cards that is meant for something specifically, and that is to get to my big ships as fast as possible. So that sounds like something you want to do, but that's not something you can do every time. Like, if my turn 2 and turn 3 is ramp, like, tell me, Sabine expert, how's that going to go for me?
Yeah.
like you're slapping a dark saber and having a good time.
At that point.
Yeah. And it's the same for Han and for maybe like Quinlan. Like they can turn the corner on that pretty quickly if they're recognizing that I'm trying to chase. If I'm looking too much like I'm trying to chase a card, then it's not great. It could look okay if you are, hitting the resupply carrier and then you have the turbo laser salvo. Well, you're only hitting for 4 in that situation, and everyone's on 4 HP or shielded units. Sure. So it's like, okay, I've done nothing to the game state, and I've raced all the way to this card that has done nothing for me. Um, so I've got them in the side. I've got them in the side because they're for control. Because I want to do that against control. I want to ramp twice and then drop my relentless first.
Yep.
Because I'll be able to do that on, if they, it depends on the type of control deck that you're playing. But if they're not ramping, then on their 5 turn, on their 5 resource turn, I'm playing a relentless. And that's when a lot of their stuff starts turning on.
Yeah.
And now they're already playing on the back foot. And then while they're doing that, I'm playing all these other bigger units. I've just got the resources. Yeah, so I think there's some definite value in here. There's some tweaks that I'm already kind of thinking about. The one Gladiator Star Destroyer I want to keep testing, but that could move. The Artequizan Assault Cruiser is also another one that I'm keeping my eye on. Like we kind of talked about, is that there's not a huge amount of space presence. And I feel like there's a lot of other cards that we have that are dealing with this in the same way. And again, it's like on the 6th turn, we're ramping up. Like this might be something that falls to the sideboard against Piett. They play their resupply carrier. We can top that with the Artequizans to ramp over them again. Because, we're just ramping and we're racing resources in that situation. And that might be quite simply how we just bring in the second legal authority and the third no glory. Because those ones we're probably going to see a lot more action out of. But yeah, I did bring this to a locals not too long ago. Unfortunately, before I checked the deck, I had no super laser techs in there, and I still went 3-1. So, but I lost to another blue green player, good buddy of ours, but he got the ramp when I didn't, and I definitely paid for it. So,
Yeah.
if you're looking for where the priority for the ramp is in this deck, it is on the 3s, like your super lasers and your resupplies. And you the only other advice I'd give is that if you draw multiple ramp options, keep multiple ramp options, because there's too much discard out there right now.
Sure.
So, but
makes sense.
It's an enjoyable deck. Definitely a contender for me in our next round of competitive scenes between the upcoming PQs and regionals we have here in Minneapolis. But some more testing's got to be done.
Makes sense. Yeah, definitely scary what it can accomplish even so fast. I mean, even if it is against a Sabine or something, and maybe you just allocate one turn towards ramping. I mean, that can. I've always thought the MC30 frigate into a 7 OB is like very scary for Sabine to deal with. So it's just finding out those lines and what they are, and it's definitely like not. This is, I feel, the first like blue villain control deck that it's like the most unafraid of aggro. I feel like it can have a very good matchup in aggro. If you get the relief runner out there early and you just start healing, or you can no glory something that is buffed up and scary. You can just lay out some crazy OBs, and then if you get to a turbo laser salvo, like boom, that's just board reset. And what are they going to do against that? So it is the one that, as Sabine, I sit down, I'm like, okay, I have to take this seriously. I can't just like be like, oh, a free win, I just attack.
Yeah, because we've got the no glories and the OBs to slow things down. Next the following turn we put out a capital ship, and then it's turbo laser after that. So like typically after you've done a big OB, it probably takes a turn, maybe two, for a aggro player to catch up and get that board state again. And it's like, all right, as soon as you got there, we're gonna hit you again.
Yeah.
So this is definitely like definitely a go wide for sure. I wish I could tell you that Piett's ambush mechanic has kicked in, but it has been a hard target. So it kind of gets to live as that like pseudo taunt. People treat it like it's got Sentinel because they don't want that to come around, because we do see a lot of profit out of that.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, definitely one I'll keep sleeved up for a little bit longer.
Yeah, definitely one to keep an eye out for as well, especially the space heavy decks. I don't know how many wedges and Poes are running around there, but that's like ideal matchup for you, I think, just to go
Yeah,
into those space heavy ones, and
I
even if they are aggro.
yeah, one of my recent matches at in person was a wedge, and it was fleet interdictor. On the 5 resource turn, they spent an egregious amount of time, resources, and cards, and my follow up was to just drop another one. And then they said,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go eat dinner, and just
Yeah.
just
Stupid.
yeah. So it definitely feels into that, because interdictor reads a 3-cost space unit. So even if your leader's not safe, if you pilot your leader onto a 3-cost unit. So
Yeah.
but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
You get to, my favorite part of Star Wars Battlefront 2 was all the space battles, and I get to feel that with this deck.
Yep. Big space triangles.
Oh yeah.
Well, if you guys have any questions, or if you run the deck, have some success, let us know down in the comments. Otherwise, feel free to like and subscribe. Other than that, we'll be pumping out some more set for meta stuff here in the coming weeks after this. This is kind of leading up into the sector qualifier in Denver this weekend, and we'll see what happens after that. But if you got nothing else, Alex, I got nothing to say about Big Ship Boy, and we'll peace out.
Okay, sounds good. Let's peace out.
Space tech, spaceports, TCG, card sports, of course, till my voice goes hoarse. Welcome, wrecking, decking with the strategy, the energy, it's Clone Force 23.